You aren't being kind. You're being used as background scenery in someone else's life. Imagine waking up every day feeling like a ghost haunting the corridors of your own existence. You give until there is nothing left, yet the world continues to demand even more. This heavy weight in your chest isn't just fatigue. It is the ache of deep soul exhaustion. You have fallen into a state of internalized servitude, prioritizing everyone else's needs above your own. Do you feel like a living, breathing person or just a resource for others to consume? In the digital world, we call these background figures NPCs, which stands for non-player characters. An NPC exists only to serve the hero's journey, having no agency or story of their own. When you live without boundaries, you become the NPC in a game that isn't even yours. You might believe your constant giving is a virtue, but psychology suggests a much darker reality. Psychologically, generosity without boundaries is perceived by others as weakness rather than as genuine love. By offering everything for nothing, you inadvertently signal that your time and effort have no value. Humans are wired to ignore what is easy. People rarely respect things that are provided for free. You are trapped in a covert contract, expecting appreciation that will never actually arrive. This silent agreement breeds resentment, feeding the hungry hunger of your ignored Jungian shadow. Deep down, a monster in the garden is growing, fueled by the disrespect you've allowed. You have traded your sovereignty for the hollow comfort of being liked by those who exploit you. It is time to face the truth. Your kindness has become a cage of your own making. To break free, you must learn the cold power found within Machiavellian indifference. When was the last time your generosity was met with respect instead of immediate expectation? The cycle of depletion continues because you have forgotten how to say no to the world. Your spirit is flickering out, exhausted by the endless demands of those who take without giving. You are a resource to be used, a tool to be wielded, but never a partner. This realization is painful, yet it is the only way to reclaim your lost identity. But why does your brain allow this exhaustion to happen in the first place? To stop being treated as a resource, you must first understand the cold biology of the predator. In the wild, being harmless doesn't make you a friend. It simply makes you easy food. Nature follows a strict code where predators rarely attack one another unless it is absolutely necessary. They recognize the danger in their equals, preferring to avoid a conflict that could prove fatal. For example, a lion does not hunt a wolf for sport because the risk far outweighs the reward. The cost of a potential injury keeps these apex hunters in a state of mutual, wary respect. Instead, predators scan the horizon for the harmless, targeting the slow and the weak among the herd. This primal calculus didn't disappear when humans built cities and established complex social norms. Even today, the primitive human brain interprets a lack of consequences as a signal for lack of respect. When you offer total compliance, you often inadvertently trigger a state of internalized servitude in your relationships. Those around you might respond with Machiavellian indifference, seeing your kindness as a resource to be drained. You might believe in a covert contract where your submission will eventually be rewarded with appreciation. But the primitive mind doesn't reward submission. It exploits it until there is nothing left to take. To change this dynamic, you must confront the Jungian shadow that hides your capacity for aggression. Think of it as being a monster in the garden, choosing peace instead of being forced into it. True sovereignty comes from knowing you could be dangerous, but choosing to act with disciplined restraint. The gazelle is eaten because it has no choice, while the wolf is spared because it does. Why does the lion ignore the wolf while hunting the gazelle with relentless, focused intent? Is your supposed kindness actually just a signal that you present zero risk to those around you? If you cannot say no, your yes is a hollow echo of someone else's will. This biological reality leads to a terrifying philosophical truth about what we commonly call virtue. You've been told that being harmless is the same as being good, but you've been lied to. We often confuse our simple inability to bite with a moral choice not to cause any harm. Is your choice not to bite actually a virtue if you do not have any teeth at all? Jordan Peterson suggests that true goodness is not found in weakness, but in controlled and disciplined strength. True virtue requires having the capacity for destruction, while choosing to maintain a path of peace instead. Consider the massive difference between a sword in its sheath and a blade that was never forged. Would you rather be a harmless sheep or a powerful lion that consciously chooses to remain still? When you lack the power to say no, your kindness is just a form of internalized servitude. You are trapped in a covert contract, trading your silence for a safety that you never earned. To be truly moral, you must first integrate your Jungian shadow and acknowledge your potential for darkness. The monster in the garden is incredibly dangerous but remains peaceful by its own conscious and deliberate choice. Without power, you are merely performing a role of Machiavellian indifference instead of showing any real mercy. Sovereignty comes from knowing you could be a threat, yet deciding to act with grace and restraint. The predator from before does not respect your harmlessness because it sees only a lack of resistance. Your passivity is not a badge of honor but a shield for the fear you refuse to face. Look closely at your history and ask if your goodness is just a lack of other viable options. A person who cannot do harm is not a saint, but simply a harmless and ineffective bystander. The goal is to become dangerous and then keep that danger under your absolute and conscious control. Morality is the restraint of power, not the absence of it in a world of constant struggle. Most of us aren't choosing peace because we're trapped in a contract we never actually signed. Imagine you are sitting in a high-stakes board meeting, feeling the heavy weight of internalized servitude. You have operated under a covert contract, hoping your quiet obedience would eventually earn you respect. Across the table sits a corporate wolf, ready to tear into your hard-earned progress without hesitation. In this moment, the harmless saint you have pretended to be is nothing more than easy prey. To survive this encounter, you must invite your Jungian shadow to take a seat beside you. You need to become the monster in the garden, a force that is dangerous but remains disciplined. True virtue requires having the capacity for destruction, but choosing peace instead of mindless aggression. You look your opponent in the eye, finally letting go of the desperate need for their approval. Suddenly, you adopt a posture of Machiavellian indifference, signaling that you are no longer a victim. The room grows quiet as the wolf realizes the risk of attacking you has become too high. A lion does not hunt a wolf for sport because the potential cost of injury is too great. By revealing your teeth without biting, you establish a new boundary that demands immediate and total respect. This is the birth of your sovereignty, where you lead from strength rather than fearful submission. You speak with a calm authority that resonates through the glass walls of the modern office. The predator retreats, sensing that you are no longer the resource they once thought they owned. Every word you choose is deliberate, cutting through the manipulation with surgical and cold precision. You are not being mean. You are simply refusing to play the part of the background scenery. This shift from harmlessness to controlled power changes the very atmosphere of the entire workspace. Your colleagues watch in silence as the dynamic shifts from exploitation to a balanced negotiation. You have successfully transitioned from an NPC to the master of your own social domain. This is not about winning a fight. It is about making sure the fight never begins. When you carry a sword you know how to use, others naturally treat you with greater care. You leave the meeting feeling a strange sense of calm that only true self-possession can provide. Your shadow is no longer a hidden threat, but a loyal guardian standing watch over your life. This is how you reclaim your time and your dignity in a world designed to consume you. There is a secret deal you've made with the world, and it's the reason you're feeling bitter. This hidden bargain is a fake virtue that creates what psychologists call a dangerous covert contract. You hide your true needs and act perfectly while expecting unspoken love or protection in return. This psychological scenario is the primary feature of the common nice guy or nice girl syndrome. You are trading your total obedience for a currency of affection that no one else accepts. Are you actually being helpful to others, or are you simply trying to buy their affection? This pattern is a form of internalized servitude where you treat your own kindness as a bribe. You believe that if you follow every rule, the world is obligated to reward your silence. But what happens when they don't fulfill their side of a deal they never even agreed to? Your repressed desires begin to fester, feeding the darker parts of your hidden Jungian shadow. You have built a beautiful garden, but you have no monster inside to protect its borders. Without the monster in the garden, your kindness is just a lack of options and strength. True sovereignty requires you to acknowledge the power you possess instead of hiding behind forced niceness. You must embrace a touch of Machiavellian indifference to stop being a resource for others' consumption. This covert contract is a trap that keeps you locked in the role of a background NPC. It is a manipulative game where you pretend to be selfless while harboring deep, unspoken expectations. By acting perfectly, you hope to shield yourself from the harsh reality of potential rejection. Yet, this constant performance only leads to the soul exhaustion you have been feeling lately. You are essentially trying to control people as perceptions by being the most agreeable person in the room. This lack of authenticity is why your relationships feel transactional and ultimately leave you empty. To reclaim your life, you must burn the unspoken contract that dictates your every move. Stop waiting for permission to exist and start defining the terms of your own engagement. To break this contract, you must finally become something much more than just a good person. You think you're being good, but you are actually just wearing a mask to stay safe. This social mask of niceness is not virtue. It is a shield born from a fear of conflict. You trade your true self for the illusion of protection, hoping the world will not strike you down. Beneath this polite surface lies a covert contract, a psychological deal you never dare to speak aloud. You hide your needs and act perfectly, expecting unspoken love or protection in return for your silence. This hidden arrangement is the defining mark of the nice guy or girl syndrome that drains you. You have fallen into a state of internalized servitude, believing your only value lies in being useful. This secret deal poisons actual kindness, turning every helpful gesture into a debt that others must pay. By repressing your darkness, you have ignored your Jungian shadow, letting it fester in the cold basement. A person who cannot be dangerous is not a saint. They are merely a monster in the garden. Real kindness is not a reflex of the weak, but a deliberate choice made by the powerful. True sovereignty begins when you stop being nice because you have to and start being kind. A powerful individual chooses when to show mercy rather than being forced into it by their fear. You must learn a touch of Machiavellian indifference to protect your spirit from those who take greedily. Without the ability to say no, your yes is just a hollow echo of a broken man. Integrating your shadow allows you to bring your full strength to the table without apology or fear. This is the path to sovereignty, where you reclaim your life from the hands of the ungrateful. The covert contract promised you safety, but it only delivered a prison of your own making. It is time to burn that contract and step out from behind the mask of harmlessness. True kindness requires teeth, a sharp edge that defines where you end and the world begins. Stop being the victim of your own goodness and start becoming the master of your own destiny. Your fear of being disliked has kept you small, hiding the power that you truly possess. Kindness is not the absence of strength, but the presence of strength under total control. When you shed the mask of niceness, you finally invite others to see who you really are. This transition from servitude to sovereignty marks the moment you finally begin to live for yourself. Would you rather be good and broken, or whole and dangerous enough to survive this world? To reclaim your sovereignty, you must first confront the deep shadows you have spent years hiding. The solution is not to be nicer. It is to finally integrate the monster living inside you. You have been trapped by internalized servitude, but the key to your cell is actually within reach. Carl Jung once famously stated that he would rather be whole than simply a good person. Wholeness requires you to stop running from your darkness and start using it for your own benefit. This journey begins by tearing up every covert contract you have ever signed with the people around you. You must acknowledge the energy you have suppressed for the sake of being considered polite and harmless. In psychology, aggression is defined as the energy required to move forward against any resistance. Without this vital energy, you are paralyzed whenever the world places an obstacle in your path. Pushing through a locked door requires a force that your nice persona simply cannot provide you. To protect your peace, you must become a monster in the garden, dangerous yet perfectly controlled. Having the capacity for destruction is the only thing that makes your choice for peace virtuous. Now, consider who holds the actual power in your most difficult and draining personal relationships. The iron law of relationships states that the person who cares the least holds the power. If you are too afraid to lose someone, you have effectively handed them the leash. Developing a sense of Machiavellian indifference allows you to prioritize your own needs and boundaries. This is not about being cruel. It is about having the strength to finally walk away. When you stop being desperate for approval, your presence suddenly commands a different kind of respect. True sovereignty is the ability to say no and mean it, regardless of the consequences. You are no longer background scenery. You are the architect of your own social reality. By embracing your shadow, you transform from a victim into a person of genuine character. What part of yourself have you buried in the dirt just to stay polite for others? It is time to dig up that buried strength and use it to forge a new path. Once you have the monster, you need the tools to use it effectively and with precision. The most powerful weapon in your tactical arsenal isn't a shout, it is the power of silence. Integration is internal, but you now need external defenses to protect your newly integrated Jungian shadow. What happens when the person trying to hurt you finds absolutely nothing to grab onto? You are moving beyond internalized servitude and stepping into the cold clarity of true sovereignty. To become mentally untouchable, you must first embrace the concept of Machiavellian indifference. This is the absolute freedom to be misunderstood or even disliked by those around you. When you stop caring about their opinion, you break the chains of your old covert contract. Imagine standing firm while others scream, entirely comfortable with their false perceptions of your character. This indifference is a shield that prevents manipulators from finding a hook in your soul. Next, you must master the gray rock method to starve predators of their emotional supply. By being dull and uninteresting, you become a useless target for anyone seeking a reaction. Like a literal gray rock, you offer no shine, no texture, and no value to a predator. Predators thrive on your energy, but they cannot exploit a total lack of emotional response. Become the most boring person in the room until the manipulator loses interest and moves on. To maintain this distance, you must identify the toxic communication behavior known as jading. Jading occurs whenever you feel the need to justify, argue, defend, or explain your choices. Every time you explain yourself to a manipulator, you are handing them a handle to pull. Stop justifying your boundaries and start stating them as the absolute laws of your personal kingdom. Refusing to argue is not a sign of weakness. It is an exercise of your power. This leads you toward emotional autonomy, where your mood is independent of external reactions. True emotional autonomy means your internal state is no longer a hostage to another person's whims. You are the monster in the garden, peaceful but possessing the strength to remain entirely unmoved. Can you handle the radical freedom that comes with being completely and utterly misunderstood? By becoming an immovable rock, you finally regain your market value in a world of puppets. These tools transform your vulnerability into a fortress of silence that no manipulator can ever breach. Now that you have your defenses, we need to talk about your current price tag. Why is the most important substance for life, simple air, worth exactly $0 to anyone? It is because air is everywhere, always available, and requires no effort to obtain or hold. You might be making the same mistake by offering your presence like a free atmospheric resource. This state of constant availability is the ultimate symptom of your long-standing internalized servitude to others. In the economy of human interaction, your market value is tied directly to your perceived scarcity. Gold is precious not just for its beauty, but because it is difficult to find and extract. Resources that are always available, just like the air we breathe, command a market value of zero. If you are always there, your absence is never felt and your presence is never earned. Reclaiming your sovereignty starts with understanding that you are not a public utility for someone else. Your Jungian shadow knows that a monster in the garden is more respected than a harmless flower. We must look at the economic reality of your choices through the lens of opportunity cost. Every time you say yes to one thing, you are silently saying no to something else. That is the heavy price of your availability. The things you sacrifice just to be nice. You are still operating under a covert contract, hoping your constant presence will finally buy love. But the world doesn't reward the always available, it consumes them until there is nothing left. Developing a touch of Machiavellian indifference allows you to choose where your energy is truly spent. When you become rare, people stop looking through you and start looking toward you for direction. Value is not something you beg for, it is something you create by setting a boundary. Are you going to remain as common as air, or as rare as refined gold? Does your yes actually mean anything if you are physically incapable of saying a firm no? Withdrawal is not an act of cruelty, it is the strategic management of your own importance. Think of your time as a limited currency that must be spent with extreme, calculated precision. Every moment you spend as a background character in someone's life lowers your overall worth. It is time to tear up the contract that forces you to be everyone's emergency contact. By limiting your access, you force the world to acknowledge the true weight of your presence. Stop being the air they breathe for free and start being the gold they must work for. The paradox is this: to be wanted, you must be willing to be gone. The moment you are willing to walk away is the moment you gain all the power. Value isn't just about rarity. It is about the ever-present threat of your sudden, silent disappearance. You have spent years trapped in internalized servitude, becoming a constant fixture in everyone else's lives. They take you for granted because you are always there, like the very air they breathe. Yet humans are psychologically wired to value your presence far more when they fear losing you. The cold truth is that fear of loss drives human behavior much more than desire. People will work significantly harder to keep what they have than to gain something entirely new. This is where you must finally unleash the Machiavellian indifference required to reclaim your total sovereignty. You are no longer the harmless saint, but the monster in the garden protecting its sacred boundaries. To shift this dynamic, you must change how you respond to every single request made of you. Imagine the shift when you begin saying no to 90% of what people ask of you. Suddenly, the 10% of requests you actually accept become a rare and high-value privilege. Your presence transforms from a cheap commodity into a prized asset that others must actively earn. This breaks the covert contract where you traded your soul for the crumbs of social approval. Integrating your Jungian shadow means realizing that your refusal has more weight than your constant agreement. When you become scarce, the people around you are forced to re-evaluate your true importance. Are they valuing you for who you are, or just for the endless convenience you provide? What happens to their world when your refusal makes your rare agreement feel like a gift? Stop being the person who is always available and start being the one who is missed. This shift in leverage is the only way to end the cycle of being exploited. It is not about being cruel. It is about acknowledging your worth through tactical withdrawal. The fear of your absence acts as a psychological engine, driving others to treat you better. You are teaching the world that access to your time and energy is a limited resource. Sovereignty is found in the space where you are no longer a predictable cog in their machine. When you stop being the helper, you finally start being the builder of your own life. This is not about being cruel. It is about becoming truly sovereign over your own existence. The most important relationship you have been betraying isn't with them, it is with yourself. You have lived too long in a state of internalized servitude, waiting for permission to exist. The covert contract you signed promised love for compliance, but it only delivered exhaustion and bitterness. Remember that generosity without boundaries is never seen as love. It is always perceived as weakness. It is time to integrate your Jungian shadow and stop fearing the strength hidden within you. You must become the monster in the garden, capable of peace only because you possess teeth. The iron law of relationships states that the person who cares the least holds the power. Mastering Machiavellian indifference allows you to prioritize your own needs without seeking any external validation. Stop acting like the worker bee and start becoming the architect of your own hive. True sovereignty begins the moment you refuse to betray your soul for the sake of approval. Who will you finally become when you stop living for the hollow echoes of their applause? Your needs are no longer a footnote in someone else's story. They are the primary focus. Imagine a version of yourself that walks through the world with calm, undeniable, and quiet authority. You are no longer available for exploitation because you have finally learned the value of no. Real self-respect isn't found in being liked, but in being someone you can actually respect. When you reclaim your time and energy, the power dynamic of your entire world shifts. Is it finally time to prioritize the architect of your life instead of the audience? Step into the role of the sovereign, where your own judgment is the only compass. The era of being background scenery is over. You are finally the protagonist of your journey. This internal shift isn't loud or aggressive, but it is the most powerful move you'll make. But there are deeper levels to this psychology that I simply cannot show you here. The algorithm doesn't want you to know how deep this psychological rabbit hole really goes. There is a fine line between simple self-defense and the mastery of high-level influence. Are you truly ready to stop playing by the standard rules of social engagement? Do you want the sanitized, censored version of reality, or the uncomfortable, raw truth? YouTube algorithms often suppress content that explores the mechanics of high-level psychological manipulation. Because these insights are deemed too dangerous, they are frequently hidden from the public eye. We have already discussed your Jungian shadow and how to feed the monster in your garden. But those were merely the introductory steps to achieving absolute, unwavering tactical sovereignty. Now, it is time to dismantle the internalized servitude that still lingers within your mind. Imagine finally entering the architect level, where you see the simulation for what it truly is. This is where Machiavellian indifference becomes more than a theory. It becomes your primary shield. By clicking the join button, you gain immediate access to exclusive, uncensored video masterclasses. These sessions bypass the filters to deliver the heavy-hitting psychology the algorithm tries to bury. I am inviting you to join an inner circle of individuals committed to total autonomy. We will strip away every remaining covert contract that is currently holding your potential hostage. This is not for everyone. It is for those who demand the keys to their own kingdom. The world prefers you harmless and predictable, but you were never meant to be either. Secure your place behind the wall and master the techniques that others are afraid to mention. Your journey toward becoming a true architect of your own existence starts right here. Make your choice now, and I will see you on the other side. Now that you have crossed the threshold, you must master the ultimate weapon of personal sovereignty. Stop apologizing for your time, and start treating your presence like a finite and precious resource. You have been trapped in a covert contract, trading your freedom for the illusion of being liked. Breaking this cycle requires more than just willpower. It requires a calculated, tactical shift in your behavior. Humans are psychologically hardwired to value things most when they face the stinging fear of loss. When you are always available, you are effectively worthless in the eyes of the predatory observer. To reclaim your status, you must learn to embrace the art of Machiavellian indifference toward trivial demands. Imagine your life as a private sanctuary, a hidden garden where only the elite are ever invited. If everyone has an open invitation, you aren't a gatekeeper. You are merely a doormat for others. You must become the monster in the garden, protecting your peace with a fierce and unwavering no. Here's the cold, mathematical reality that will dismantle your internalized servitude forever. If you refuse 90% of the requests that come your way, everything changes instantly. That single statistic is the secret key to unlocking a world where your time is gold. By rejecting the low-value noise, you force the world to see your rare yes as a privilege. People stop expecting your compliance and start earning the right to occupy your limited mental space. This isn't about being cruel. It is about integrating your Jungian shadow to set firm, ironclad boundaries. The 10% you choose to accept will carry more weight than 1,000 hollow favors. You are no longer a background character performing tasks. You are the architect of your own domain. Scarcity creates a magnetic pull that demands respect from those who previously took you for granted. Every time you say no to the mundane, you are saying yes to your own untapped potential. This refusal rate is the firewall that protects your sovereignty from the drain of common exploitation. Watch how the power dynamic shifts as you become a person of high-value scarcity and intent. You are building a life where your presence is a reward, not a guaranteed service for others. Mastering this mechanic is the final step in shedding the skin of a harmless, broken saint. Now, you are ready to wield the power of your silence with absolute and devastating precision.